So at the core of emotional eating is this feeling of disconnection. It's a feeling of disconnection from three key main areas. And so when we feel disconnected, we are sort of using food to numb out and not feel disconnected. We're trying to gain some type of connection. And so today we're going to explore what we need to connect back to. So if you're new here, welcome. My name is Michelle. I'm a certified holistic nutritionist specializing in emotional eating. And I wanted to talk about connection. I think it's a way that can help you understand what's going on with your emotional eating. Because the way we've been sold to look at emotional eating is mostly about control and trying to control our behavior versus what is missing. Connection is missing. Connection to the three key main areas that I work with clients in are connection to food, connection to our body, and connection to our emotions. So when we have this pattern, fundamentally we are disconnected from these areas and they sort of build on each other layer by layer because emotional eating is a coping mechanism. It means that initially, when we are very young, our connection to food, if we are usually when we're young, we're more connected to our bodies. We're more connected to how much we need to eat before we're conditioned out of it. And so we have a better connection to food and our body. We're not using food or convoluting our body to try to get something. And our connection to our emotions, if they are nurtured by our parents or caregivers, that connection remains stable. Let's say it remains healthy and functional. But the thing that happens is that most of us are disconnected, firstly, from our emotions because our parents and caregivers were not able to help us move through discomfort, emotions, stress, to integrate them, to navigate them, to resolve them. And this would have happened sort of over time. And this creates a situation where we're not connected to our emotions. We're told the message, something's wrong with our emotions, something's wrong with us expressing ourselves. Sort of the root of what's going on is not ever looked at. And emotions are sort of seen as something, we shouldn't have so many emotions, or too big, X, Y, and Z. But emotions are important. They are messengers. And as children, they're giving us messages about our environment. They're giving us messages about our discomfort. They're giving us messages about what we're experiencing without sort of cognitively putting a label on it. Our body is giving us information. And these emotions come from the way we're feeling sensation-wise. And those sensations, we can put a label as an emotion and then we create a story about it. And as children, it doesn't mean the story we're telling ourselves about our emotions is correct. It's usually we need our parents and caregivers to help us navigate that, to sort of shift the story, because we are trying to make sense of what is going on in our body, the information. And without our parents or caregivers there to help us navigate that, and even if they're shutting it down or dismissing it, that leaves us with this discomfort in our body, with these emotions. And emotions, especially, the painful, quote unquote ones, if you have sadness or anger or hurt, they're uncomfortable in the body because they're destabilizing our nervous system. They're destabilizing us from feeling that calm and feeling good. It's giving us a signal we're in some kind of pain or turmoil. And if we don't have parents or caregivers to help us navigate through that, we are left with this discomfort. And as emotional eaters, we would have been left with this to a degree that we needed to cope. We needed to find something outside of us to soothe us, to comfort us, which is food. And so when we are in this position, we're disconnected from our emotions because we don't know how to connect with them, to integrate them, to move through them, resolve them, understand them, all of these things that are necessary because they're giving us vital information. And so as we use food to sort of create this band-aid, this numbing effect, we disconnect from food. Food is no longer food and nourishing us. Food becomes this stand-in for comfort, even though it's a band-aid. It's not really doing that. And as we have this relationship to food, a part of us is feeling out of control with food. We are feeling something's wrong with us. And I find with a lot of my clients, then there's the messaging around our body. If we look a certain way, maybe we'll gain that acceptance and validation that we're actually looking for, that connection to our emotions, that acceptance of how we are being. And so body comes into it almost, it can be in body image or needing to feel accepted because you don't feel that way because you were in a way rejected around your emotions, or food becomes so out of control, it starts impacting your body and you're getting those messages that your body is now shifting. It is, showing physical symptoms of having this relationship to food, maybe in weight gain and inflammation and digestive issues. And so it becomes this thing that you want to control. And also, if our body looks a certain way, we feel like we have our value and worth coming from that. And then if we can control food, that means we can control our body and secure self-worth and acceptance. And then, we just want to get away from the emotions, what's under this pattern. It's called emotional eating for a reason. There are emotions tied into it. But the way we have been taught to be with emotions, for the most part, are very surface level. They're not actually giving us the tools and the steps to move through our emotions. And I see this with my son. He's very, in touch with his emotions. He's very aware, but I need to be guiding him through a process so he feels like he's actually fully expressed that emotion. What a lot of us do, or even if you had parents that, really tried their best, is they almost jump over the emotion into logic. And we need to actually process and integrate the emotion before we start shifting logic. The emotional brain needs to inform the logical brain. So we have to move through that, have enough capacity to move through that. And as kids, we would have needed our parents to do that for us. And this is where we miss that connection to our emotions. And so, a lot of the times a sticking point for clients could be, my parents did the best they could. Yes, but it is not exactly what you needed or we need to move through this. When we don't move through our emotions or we don't feel accepted with them, what that creates is this sense of things aren't resolved. This creates an unresolved event, which is a trauma. That's simply what a trauma is, whether it's big, small, it's on a spectrum. And so when we have a trauma, that just indicates there's such a disconnection. And so if you are feeling out of control with food and your body and your emotions, there's a disconnection. There's not a harmony. There's not a connection. There's not a healthy relating. We have to connect back in a healthy way because that disconnection is an unhealthy way of being with food, our body, our emotions. And so this is what's really going to resolve our emotional eating. Of course, they tie in really specifically because now that we have this disconnected relationship to these things, food, our body, our emotions, we feel out of control. We don't feel connected. So we want to start reconnecting back to these areas. We want to go from having these unresolved situations around food, our body, and our emotions, these traumas, these specific events, to connecting back and learning how to reconnect back. And so this has certain steps. And the way I teach clients in the Emotional Eating Evolution program is to connect back to each of these areas. At the core, it really is about our emotions, but now we have to look at how we relate to food and our body because it's become disconnected as well. And so we are moving through these three areas, connecting back to food as a nourishing aspect to our lives, learning when we are actually using food to cope and disconnect versus having true hunger and connecting to food and how to nourish our bodies. We're learning how to connect back to our body, accepting its rhythms and disconnecting and looking at where we feel shame and we're spiraling and we look at our body as our self-worth, which pushes us into sort of that shame spiral when we don't have the right body into emotional eating. And it's about connecting back to our emotions, reconnecting, resolving those traumas, those unresolved situations so that we're no longer going to food to soothe, but there are specific events connected to our emotional eating. And so once we're able to resolve these specific instances, not every trauma you've been through, but it will give you the tools to resolve things as they come up in your life. But once we heal this, there's no way you can start using food as a band-aid or looking at your body the same way because you'll get in touch to what is true for you, to what is core and important to you. And this is what creates that ease and peace and confidence in your body and around food. Because we are going to the roots of this pattern, we are looking at these three key areas, we start feeling that ease in our body. because we're releasing these sort of traumas that are in our body, and we start feeling that ease, and we're disconnecting and reconnecting back to food and our body in this healthy way that we feel confident around it. We're going to have sort of this opening, this awareness, and it's not like we have to grip or willpower. It's not any of that. And so as we do this, we resolve our emotional eating. So all of these are needed to resolve your emotional eating pattern. So if you've ever felt like you are trying one thing or another and you're not looking at it through the lens of connection and trauma, this is the missing piece. We have to look at it as a relationship in your life, a relationship that you're trying to shift from being disconnected and unhealthy to connected and healthy. So we do all of this inside of the Emotional Eating Evolution program to really get you in touch with food, your body, your emotions, so you can resolve your emotional eating from the root and finally feel confident in your body and around food. If you are interested in the program, you can find out more at the link below. But as a first step, I always suggest to potential clients to download my free guide called What Are You Truly Hungry For? In this guide, it helps you start discerning truth from emotional hunger and catching your triggers. And this is the first step. It's the first step I give to clients to starting to resolve this pattern. So you can find out more at the link below. If you have any questions, please let me know. Please be sure to like and subscribe, and I look forward to sharing more with you, and I hope you have a great day.